Gauteng is commonly known as the hub of business activity on the African continent. But on today's episode of Eye on Gauteng, we show you a more playful side of the city region. Hello and welcome to Eye on Gauteng. I'm Kukule Tukele. The province's rich cultural diversity has certainly contributed to a booming tourism sector. And this is the ever-famous Vilakazi Street. Let's take a walk. Vilakazi Street in the township of Soweto in Johannesburg is perhaps most famous for being the only street in the world where two Nobel Peace Laureates once lived. The late Nelson Mandela, whose house is now a museum, and the surviving Archbishop Desmond Tutu. South Africa's history and diversity form the foundation of Heritage Month celebrations across the country. In Tshwane, Heritage Day on the 24th of September was celebrated in style. That's any style that makes you feel like you. The Gauteng Social Cohesion Carnival saw over 25,000 people participate from all South African cultures, as well as people from other parts of Africa, Greeks, Italians, Chinese, and Indians, to name a few.
September is known as Heritage Month in South Africa, and all the month celebrations come down to this one day, National Heritage Day, where Africans from all over the continent, all over the world, come together to share their rich cultural diversity.
I think these celebrations are absolutely great. I mean, South Africans are coming out in their numbers to celebrate heritage. However, I do feel that it's very important that heritage should be celebrated every other day of the year, not only on the 24th of September. Heritage is something that shapes our identity, and today, as you can see, I'm completely embracing living in a diverse South Africa.
It is a happy day, Heritage Day. As you can see, it's our social cohesion. All countries here that exist here, that are residing here in Gauteng, and many young people from various schools. It is indeed a real Heritage Day.
It's one of the most important national days in South Africa. But on National Heritage Day, we have chosen to celebrate our heritage here in the city of Tshwane through a Social Cohesion Carnival. 26,000 people are in the streets of Tshwane, together sending a strong message that firstly, we have a common origin, and the humanity's origin is Africa. We also have a common destiny. Every year we will be working with the city of Tshwane to grow this carnival. Next year we want to see it having 30,000 people in the street of Tshwane. We are competing with the Rio Carnival. That's where we are going. And I'm very happy that the mayor of Tshwane is going to be working with us to make sure every South African, people from all over the continent and the different nations of the world must join us on the 24th of September every year, celebrating social cohesion, building social cohesion in the form of a beautiful carnival that we see today.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Can I get your thoughts very briefly? What are your thoughts? Do you agree with what the Premier has just shared?
I agree. I have goosebumps when I look at the thousands of people that are here. You know, different in all respect, but we are all the same. And on a day like this, a Heritage Day, where we're celebrating our diversity, where we are saying we might be different, but we are all the same. And really, this is something that gives me hope of a future that is bright for all of us if we all pull together like we're pulling here today.
So would you say that events like this help in addressing issues of xenophobia that we have in the country?
Yes, indeed. I mean, I'm having my brother here from the Africa diaspora. We are talking about how we will be able to get this to be better together. It's when people understand each other's cultures. It's when people understand each other's way of doing things that we can accept each other, but not accept each other, but embrace, our diversity. And then we'll be able to build social cohesion.
And then as the mayor of Tshwane, what are your immediate plans to extend the social cohesion policy throughout the country?
Well, look, I mean, we need to be, and we have already started. We have started engaging at school level. We started engaging in our youth platforms on how we are all different but all the same. And we need to make sure that that is what we are building as a South African nation. Not dwell on what is negative, but to build on what is positive. And that is how we are going to make sure that ours is a strong nation.
Back here on Vilakazi Street, the neighborhood tells the story of the struggle against apartheid, the rise above oppression, and the fresh bounties of freedom. Wiseman Ndombela is taking advantage of these bounties. He recently launched a helicopter tour company right across the road from Mandela's house.
One day I was sitting in one of the restaurants here, and I was looking at all these tourists that are going up and down the street. And I said to myself, these guys do not have an opportunity to see Soweto. There should be a way in which we can introduce them to see the whole of Soweto. So one of the good days I went to Ren Easter Show and I saw the helicopter taking people there, and I said, aha, I think this is the solution. So then I did a lot of research only to find that the operators were willing to work with me. So fortunately I have a very good operator that I'm working with. So this is how I identified the opportunity.
Wiseman says this is a unique business in the Soweto township, a place where many of its citizens have not had any exposure to the aviation industry.
Here in Soweto, we have tourists being ferried with either minibuses and so on. But we do it differently here. We take our clients, tourists, we fly them around Soweto using helicopters. The reason being that, when people are here, for instance here at Vilakazi Street, they usually go to Mandela House and they spend about 10 minutes or 15 minutes in Mandela House. After that, there is nothing that they do. They go down the street, up the street, down the street. We grant them an opportunity to see how big Soweto is by using a helicopter. So they see Soweto from the bird's eye view. We can fly them as far as Johannesburg, Midrand, Centurion, Pretoria. We can fly our clients as far as the Kruger National Park or Victoria Falls. We also do weddings, we do parties, we do special events. We do anything that people would like to do using a helicopter, taking people to different meetings. And one of the things that has a special part, a soft spot in my heart, we also do what we call education. We actually introduce the youngsters to the aviation careers. For instance, in pilot, helicopter pilot, aeroplane pilot, cabin crew, and those are the things that we do in our business.
Setting up the business was a costly and lengthy affair, given that he had no experience in the field.
It wasn't an easy task, but I had to take it head on. I had to do a lot of research to see if people would like it. I had to do a lot of research to see if I will be able to get the helicopters. I've learned a lot. I didn't know anything about the types of helicopters like the Jet Ranger, the Long Ranger. I didn't know that you need to have a helipad. I didn't know that you have to apply for landing. You don't just land a helicopter. So there's a lot of things that I've learned, and then I had to invest a lot of money in setting up the office, in getting the helipad and communicating with the helicopter operators. So I've learned a lot. It has been a long journey and it's still going ahead, but we're prepared to take it head on.
Now that Fly SA Wise has been up and running for a few months, the latest challenge is bringing in clients and growing the business.
It's a matter of getting clients on a daily basis because, we also would like to have clients such as the tourists coming from abroad. Them being able to book our choppers before they come into the country. So what does it mean is they have us in their itinerary. That one of the things that they'll have to do when they get to South Africa is to get into a chopper. One of the things that we want to do here is when they come to Mandela House and they've seen Mandela House, in future we want them to fly them as far as Qunu, where Mandela is resting. You know, when you come from France, you get to Mandela House, you get into a chopper aeroplane, you get to Qunu, in the afternoon you come back, you go to the airport, you go back to France. You've seen the whole of South Africa, Mandela, you've seen where he used to live, where he has rested.
With Gauteng positioned as an economic hub with vast opportunities, Wiseman was enticed here from his home province of KwaZulu-Natal.
Through the grace of God, I managed to get a place at Vilakazi Street, and what makes me happy is I got a place at Vilakazi Street right in front of Mandela House. So it motivates me every day. You know, when I see people come here, and if you look at Mandela House, it's a small house with it's a 3-roomed house. And that's another thing that makes me happy, and it draws a lot of people to come here and to see this house. You know, it humbles me to be in this place. You know, it motivates me every day when I wake up and I come and work here. I feel happy, and there's a lot of people, as you can see. This street is forever busy.
After the break, we travel back in time to the beginning of humankind. Be sure to stay tuned for that one. Welcome back to Eye on Gauteng. The Cradle of Humankind is one of 8 World Heritage Sites in South Africa and the only one in Gauteng. Many fossils have been found here over the years, but it's the recent discovery of Homo naledi that continues to entice the world. In September last year, the University of the Witwatersrand announced the discovery of a new species of human relative, Homo naledi. Since then, almost 2,000 fossil elements of over 15 individuals have been discovered at the site. This is the largest fossil hominin find so far on the African continent, a continent recognized as the birthplace of humankind.
Homo naledi was as famous at one point as the name Nelson Mandela. If you Googled, you would find that that was the name that was searched as much as Nelson Mandela. So the international reach that Homo naledi had, for one reason or another, was quite extraordinary. I think it had something to do with the hypothesis that Professor Lee Berger postulated around it being a burial site. And that just drew people here. We had, on any one day, we showed the fossils for a month, and on any one day we could have 3,500 people coming to the site. In the month after the showing of Homo naledi, we also had a huge spike. We are still getting people saying on a daily basis, where is Homo naledi? We will be bringing Homo naledi back to Marapeng, and people will be able to see it and other finds that have been found in the same cave complex.
It is not yet clear as to when Homo naledi will be back on exhibition, but the public can expect a little more than anticipated.
The $64,000 question is, when will the papers be published in the relevant magazines that they need to be published? Because you can't really show until you've done that. The first announcement will be about the date of Homo naledi, and I believe that is highly controversial. And then there is a new find, a whole new find.
3, 2, 1.
In the meantime, there's always something going on at the Cradle of Humankind. On Heritage Day, Gauteng Premier David Makhura aptly kicked off the new All From One exhibition.
Well, it's a spectacular exhibition. We're standing in front of it. It is curated by Past, and they have brought it here. It is basically an exhibition in the form of a double helix, a DNA double helix, which tells us and expands on the notion that we are all one and that we are all from one. This is an incontrovertible scientific fact. It's not a debate, it's not a theory. We are more similar than any of our differences at any point.
Heritage sites like these encourage economic activity in the surrounding areas.
You know, when we first started building Marapeng and Sterkfontein, there were 47 tourism operations in the Cradle of Humankind. The Cradle of Humankind is a huge area, 53,000 hectares, mostly all of it privately owned. Today, some 15 years later, there are more than 400 tourism operations in the area. A dramatic increase in economic viability for the area. And that's what the Cradle of Humankind has done.
Of course, heritage is economics as well. These heritage sites are important to give us a sense of history, a sense of where we come from, in order to have a determination to reach the desired future. But it's also, the heritage sites are a very important site of economic opportunities. All of them require increased number of young people, particularly being trained to be key people who are tour guides, who are people who give the narrative of our history. And I'm very pleased that in everywhere I've been, I see there's a lot of training of young people. We want to address youth unemployment, and the heritage sector is one of those areas we can train young people without them spending many years at university to be able to tell the story of the locality, the story of a municipality, and the story of our nation.
I think that often people think that bones are dry and boring. They tell a story, and they tell a story of what it means to be human. And so the challenge that we face is basically to make this a publicly owned site. We've got a wonderful amphitheatre, which we're going to be expanding, and we're going to be having concerts here. We've got the most dramatic and wonderful site, and we're wanting to make that the jewel of Gauteng.
The Cradle of Humankind is a great example of a thriving heritage site where investment and opportunities here have transformed its surroundings positively. The Heritage Monitoring Project and the Heritage Association of South Africa have been working hard to preserve South Africa's heritage and have just released a report on the top 10 endangered sites in the country, 3 of which are in Gauteng. We visited one of them, Fetus, in central Johannesburg. Its history dates back to around 1893. Over the years, this became home to Indians, Africans, whites, and even a Chinese community. About 60 years later, under the apartheid regime's Group Areas Act, the suburb was proclaimed a white area, and all non-whites were forcefully removed. Businesses and homes were bulldozed. Despite the demolitions, some significant buildings remain today, including the Fetus Museum, which the Heritage Monitoring Project says singularly keeps the fetus memory alive.
I think it shows that one person can make such a big difference in a community in terms of protecting heritage resources, and also that the potential here from a tourism point of view, that if more visitors come to the museum and if more visitors do the tours that she runs, that Salma runs, then you could start seeing other forms of local economic development happening. You know, the neighbors could start up a shop, a tuck shop or a restaurant. So it's critical that these sites, these type of places, actually continue to be there, because they become receptacles of the past. So if we lose more of, more houses in the area, the last surviving houses, then at least that memory is still present here in the museum.
Above the museum lives Salma Patel, who was born and bred in this house. She has been working tirelessly and at her own expense to preserve the museum and its surroundings.
Small museums like me are depicting real history. I'm not curating an exhibition that is in keeping with any political party, but it is rather a narrative of the experiences of the former resident or the present residents. So that's number one. More importantly, these kind of establishments need continued support just to be in a position to market ourselves. Now, I cannot even do that with my surrounding environment looking so awful. On either side of me, I have vacant stands.
Driving around the area, also known as Page View, one is illustrated with the reasoning in the Heritage Monitoring Project's report as to why the site is endangered. According to the report, years of waiting for land claims to be resolved means that there has been no investment or no redevelopment. Surviving buildings are abandoned and at risk of illegal occupation. And sanitary conditions are rife.
The Vitas Museum is having commemorating the 40th year for the destruction of this area, but I am busy engaged in cleaning up the sidewalks. Now, that is not my role, but I'd like to portray at least a decent environment to people that are going to be frequenting this museum tomorrow, and to that end, I just find it that I'm now taking on responsibilities that are really not mine.
Salma's continued struggle with authorities to support her effort in preserving the area has left her disheartened.
The landscape with the vacant lots are subject to land invasion and intimidation. And, you know, I've got a lot to lose because this is the only building in its entirety, in its original form. And I don't want to irk anybody because they've got nothing to lose. What if they set fire to this building and, you know, then a part of history and a part of my life is going to be vanished.
Gauteng Premier David Makhura says that his administration has made commitments to preserve and redevelop all existing heritage sites.
In the past 2 years, since the start of the fifth administration, we have made heritage one of the key issues that the fifth administration would like to place at the agenda of social transformation. For example, we have made a commitment to invest new resources here at Maruping. You can see that the developments just over the last year, since September last year, we have a new facility here. But all our heritage sites are going to undergo significant regeneration and investments. We unveiled a new women's monument in August, so we've got new monuments added to the existing ones. All our old monuments are also undergoing significant regeneration. So heritage is a very, very important issue of social transformation for us.
Well, we've just scratched the surface of Gauteng as a leisure destination, but that's where we'll have to leave it for today. Do be sure to send us your comments and feedback at CNBC Africa using the hashtag #IOnGauteng410. From myself and the team, it's goodbye for now.